My fiancé and sister were secretly having an affair and I was the last to know. So 3 days before my bridal shower I made a decision that shocked them both. I married someone else. It all started with the first crack in what I thought was my perfect life. It wasn't some dramatic confrontation, just a simple notification that flashed across Ryan's phone while he was in the shower. But that one message was enough to start unraveling everything I thought I knew about love, family, and trust. I'm Emily, and up until that point I was living what I believed to be every girl's dream. Perfect fiancé, the wedding of a lifetime in the works, and a close-knit family who supported all of my choices. Well, almost all of them. My sister Sarah had always been a bit of a wild card, but that's what sisters do, right? They challenge you, push your buttons. Have you decided on the final seating arrangement? Mom asked as she spread papers across my kitchen counter, busy preparing for the wedding. We need to get these to the printer by tomorrow. I nodded, trying to focus on the task at hand even though the knot in my stomach was growing by the second. Almost done, I said, scanning the papers. Just trying to figure out where to put Sarah's +1. Oh, she's not bringing anyone, Mom replied, not looking up from her list. She told me yesterday. I was confused. Just last week, Sarah had insisted on bringing a date. I filed that little detail away in my mind, adding it to the growing list of things that didn't quite add up lately. Babe, have you seen my blue tie? Ryan's voice called from upstairs. The one with a subtle pattern. Check the dry cleaning bag, I shouted back, then turned to Susan. Ryan's got 3 identical blue ties, but apparently only one of them is the one. Susan laughed, but her eyes held something else, concern, pity. Before I could analyze it further, my phone buzzed with a text from Megan, my best friend and maid of honor. Everything set for the shower? She asked. Almost just finishing up some details with Susan. You're still coming over tonight to help with the favor boxes, right? Wouldn't miss it. Plus, I have some gossip you need to hear. Ryan came downstairs, perfectly groomed in his business casual attire. He kissed my cheek, grabbed his keys and headed for the door. Meeting might run late tonight, don't wait up. Another late meeting? Susan asked after he left, her tone carefully neutral. The merger is keeping everyone busy, I explained, but even as I said it, something felt off. The merger had been his excuse for the past 3 months. That's when his phone buzzed on the counter. He'd forgotten it. The preview notification caught my eye before the screen went dark. Can't wait to see you tonight, same place. The sender's name was hidden, but my heart started racing. I picked up the phone, my finger hovering over the home button. One swipe and I could know the truth, but did I want to? Everything okay, honey? Susan asked, touching my arm. I set the phone down. Fine, just thinking about all the last-minute details. But I wasn't fine. That text joined the growing pile of oddities. Sarah had suddenly canceled her +1, Ryan's late meetings, the way he'd been guarding his phone lately, and how my sister seemed to disappear at the same times he did. The doorbell rang, making me jump. It was Megan, early for our crafting session. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, studying my face as she entered. I think I glanced at Susan, who was gathering her things to leave. I think something's wrong, I muttered. After Susan left, I showed Megan the text. Her face darkened. Have you noticed anything else weird lately? I told her everything. The coincidences, the late meetings, Sarah's strange behavior. Saying it out loud made the pattern impossible to ignore. We need to find out what's going on, Megan declared, pulling out her laptop. Remember when you installed that Google Find My app on his phone last month when he lost it at the gym? I nodded slowly, realization dawning. Well, she said, typing away, let's see where these late meetings really are. The map loaded, showing Ryan's location. He wasn't at his office downtown. Instead, the blue dot pulled steadily toward an address I recognized. Sarah's apartment building. Maybe he's just, I started but couldn't finish the sentence. The perfect illusion was cracking, and through those cracks an ugly truth was beginning to emerge. Megan squeezed my hand. Whatever's going on, we'll figure it out. But Emily, I think you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that your perfect wedding might not be so perfect. I stared at the blue dot on the screen, my engagement ring suddenly feeling like a heavy weight on my finger. In just 3 days I was supposed to celebrate my upcoming marriage with all my friends and family. Instead, I was on the verge of uncovering a betrayal that would change everything. We should follow him, Megan said the next evening, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as she kept her eyes trained on Ryan's office. We were parked a few yards away, the night wrapping around us like a thick fog. You need proof, not just suspicions. My hands trembled as I gripped my phone, watching the tracking app. The distance between my pulse and my thoughts seemed to widen. This felt wrong. I kept whispering to myself, trying to convince my own mind. You know what's wrong. Megan was right. Whatever he was doing behind my back, I needed to see it for myself. Megan pulled out of the parking lot slowly, keeping a safe distance from Ryan's car. Besides, she said, her voice unwavering, if we're wrong, we'll laugh about it. At your wedding. But I already knew we weren't wrong. The knot in my stomach had tightened with every second, every moment that I allowed this to go on unchecked. Instead of heading home, Ryan took a turn into a small Italian restaurant across town. I squinted through the window. There he was, sitting at a table, nervously checking his watch over and over again. Maybe it's just a business meeting, I whispered, mostly to convince myself. But deep down, I knew it was a lie I was trying to sell myself. Megan didn't speak, but her eyes were locked on him with the same growing unease I felt. Then she appeared. Sarah, my sister. She walked into the restaurant, looking stunning in a red dress I'd never seen before. The moment her eyes locked with Ryan's, the floor beneath me seemed to vanish. They smiled, and the smile they shared was too intimate, too knowing. Every inch of my body screamed for me to look away, but I couldn't. They stood and then they embraced. It wasn't a friendly hug. It was long, lingering, like they were trying to hide something, like they were trying to hide everything from me. The familiar warmth between them sent a sickening wave through my stomach. I'm going to be sick, I muttered, turning away from the window. But Megan grabbed my hand, her grip firm, pulling me back. We need more evidence, photos, texts, anything concrete. You know they'll deny everything otherwise, she said. Her voice was a little more urgent now, matching the storm inside my head. And she was right. I had confronted Ryan about his late nights just yesterday. He'd looked me straight in the eye and lied, claiming it was all about work stress. The memory made my blood boil, my hands tightening into fists. Let's go back to your place, Megan suggested. We can figure out what to do next. Back at my apartment, we sat in silence for a while, piecing together everything that had been happening over the last few months. Sarah's sudden breakup with her boyfriend 3 months ago. Ryan's increasingly late meetings. The way they both seemed to disappear during family dinners. It was all there, tucked into the small, unnoticed moments. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Check his email, Megan said, pointing to Ryan's laptop on the coffee table. He never logs out. I hesitated. My heart raced at the thought of what we might find. That's crossing a line, I murmured. Megan didn't miss a beat. He crossed the line first. Her voice was steady, as if she had already made the decision for me. Besides, don't you want to know the truth before your wedding shower tomorrow? The email inbox looked normal at first. Work correspondence, wedding vendor updates. But then I saw it. A folder labeled Project X. My breath caught. In the clutter of communications buried beneath a sea of spam, I stumbled upon a folder labeled Project X. Inside, I found hundreds of messages between Ryan and Sarah, dating back 4 months. The words seemed to leap off the screen, each one sharper than the last. I can't stop thinking about last night, one read. Another, miss you already. But the most chilling of all was Sarah's note from just yesterday. We need to tell her soon. My phone buzzed, Susan asking if everything was okay. You missed our final wedding shower planning call. How could I answer her? How could I tell her that the very foundation of our family was about to crumble? I couldn't. The weight of it pressed down on me, suffocating. Megan, sharp-eyed and ever-perceptive, pointed to an email thread. They've been meeting at the lakeside and every Tuesday and Thursday, she said, her voice low but firm. The same place Ryan had proposed to me. My heart sank. The betrayal was laid bare and the edges of my world began to crumble. Then my phone buzzed again. Ryan. Working late again. Don't wait up. Love you. I felt my chest tighten. I need air, I gasped, heading for the balcony. Megan followed, bringing 2 glasses of wine. We sat in silence, the weight of the moment settling between us like a storm waiting to break. The headlights of Ryan's car cut through the dark driveway. It was almost midnight, earlier than usual. I heard him fumbling with his keys outside. My heart raced. Stay here, I whispered to Megan. I want to hear what excuse he gives tonight. I walked inside just as Ryan entered. His collar was slightly askew, and there was a scent of unfamiliar perfume hanging in the air. Hey babe, he greeted me, kissing my cheek. Sorry I'm late. The merger. How's Sarah? I interrupted, my voice barely a whisper. His face faltered just for a split second, barely noticeable, but I caught it. What do you mean? He stammered. The merger meeting at Giovan's with my sister? His color drained. Emily, I can explain. He started, reaching for me, but I stepped back. We never meant for this to happen. It just did, he muttered, eyes desperate. A laugh, sharp, bitter, escaped my lips. How considerate of you to wait until after I'd celebrated my upcoming marriage with all our friends and family. I'm so sorry, he said, but his phone buzzed, his sister's name flashing on the screen. The timing was almost comical. You should get that, I said, my voice laced with mock sweetness. Wouldn't want to keep my sister waiting. I turned and walked back to the balcony, closing the door on his protests. Megan wrapped me in a tight embrace, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I let the tears fall. Later that night, the weight of everything seemed to crush me. I didn't want to be at home anymore, didn't want to be anywhere near them. I needed to escape, to lose myself for a while, so I went to the club. Thumping bass, the flashing lights. It was all a blur as I made my way through the crowd. The music was loud, but it felt too quiet in my head. The dance floor seemed so far away, as if it belonged to a different world, a different person. My phone buzzed in my pocket, another text from Sarah. Can we talk? Please let me explain. I never meant to hurt you. I deleted it without a second thought, my fingers numb as I dropped the phone into my bag. I wasn't here to think about them. I wasn't here to think about anything. But as the rhythm of the club pulsed around me, I couldn't escape the images of Ryan and Sarah, of the messages, the secret meetings, the lies that had built up between us. How could they do this? How could my own sister, the one person I trusted above all others, betray me like this? And Ryan, how could he look me in the eyes and lie so easily? I took a deep breath, the sharp scent of perfume mingling with the haze of the club. The beat of the music thrummed in my chest, but it couldn't drown out the storm inside my mind. I had been foolish. I had trusted them. I had given them everything, and they had thrown it all away. The club lights flashed around me, but they felt empty, like everything else in my life now. I had to make them pay. Oh, but I do, I said, my voice steady yet sharp, reflecting the cool resolve that had been settling deep within me. I checked my reflection in the mirror. They think they're in control of this narrative, but they're not. Not anymore. Not when I have the power to rewrite it. The venue, a private room at an upscale restaurant, was already buzzing when we arrived. As I stepped inside, my mother rushed over and enveloped me in a hug. It felt like a betrayal, a mask of concern I could no longer trust. Had she known? Had she been complicit all along? The thought gnawed at me. Alan called, she whispered, her voice tight with emotion. She said not today. I cut her off. Not today, Mom. Not today. A plastered smile settled onto my face, one I barely recognized as my own. The room was filling quickly now. Guests, relatives, coworkers, all bearing gifts and congratulations. Alice arrived last, wearing a dress that cost more than my first car, but her face was a mask of guilt that couldn't be hidden. Krista, she started, stepping toward me, arms outstretched. But I turned to the nearest guest instead, smiling through the churning storm inside me. Susan, that cake you brought looks amazing, I said, my voice too sweet to be genuine. The shower proceeded according to plan. Games, food, champagne, and me, the perfect picture of the doting bride. I played my part perfectly, gushing over gifts and laughing at wedding jokes, while only Megan knew the truth, knew the war raging inside me. Then came the speeches. As the sister of the bride, Alice stood, her champagne glass trembling in her hand, her voice unsteady. I want to say, she began, but I couldn't let her finish. I stood up suddenly. Actually, I have something to say first. The room fell into a heavy silence. Alice's face went pale as I watched her shrink back into her seat, her gaze darting nervously around the room. I had her right where I wanted her. I've been thinking about love lately, I started, my voice quiet but cutting. About trust, family, and loyalty. About how the people closest to us can surprise us in the most unexpected ways. Alice's pale face turned an even deeper shade of white, and I could feel my mother shift uncomfortably in her seat, avoiding my gaze. For instance, I continued, my tone icy, did you know that my fiancé and my sister have been sleeping together for the past 4 months? The gasps were audible. Someone dropped a glass. The room stood frozen in disbelief, each second stretching longer than the last. Krista, please, Alice whispered, her voice trembling, but I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone, projecting screenshots onto the wall. Emails, texts, hotel receipts. The evidence I had gathered in the cold, quiet hours of the night. They've been meeting at the Lakeside Inn, the same place Ryan proposed to me, I said, my voice laced with venom. Is that enough for you? That's enough, my mother said, standing up and reaching for my arm, but I jerked away. No, it's not enough, I spat, my voice rising. Did everyone know except me? Was I the only fool in this room? The silence that followed was damning, thick with guilt and the weight of years of lies. Sweetheart, we didn't want to hurt you, my mother said, her voice breaking, but it sounded like an excuse I'd heard too many times. Well, congratulations, I said bitterly. You all failed spectacularly at that. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, pausing beside Alice. The dress looks cheap, by the way, I said, my words sharp as a knife. But I guess that's fitting. The cool night air hit my face like a slap as I stepped outside, the weight of what I had just done sinking in. I walked blindly, my feet carrying me a few blocks away to a small cafe. The barista took one look at my tear-streaked face and silently brought me a coffee, no questions asked. Rough day? He asked gently. I nodded, barely able to keep my composure. I looked up to find a man watching me, concerned in his eyes. Took me a moment to place him. James. The guy who'd helped me pick up wedding invitations when I dropped them outside the print shop last week. You could say that, I replied, forcing a half smile. He sat down across from me. Want to talk about it? Not really, I wiped my eyes, the tears still there but fading. Unless you want to hear about how my fiancé and sister are having an affair, and how my entire family knew but didn't tell me. That's, wow, he said, pushing a napkin toward me. I'm sorry. Don't be, I whispered. I just blew up my own wedding shower, exposing them. At least there's that. He laughed, surprising me into laughing too. Good for you. Just then my phone buzzed again. Sir, Ryan. Various guest. I turned it off, not wanting to deal with their lies anymore. You could have another coffee, James said, offering a small smile, and tell me more about how you exposed them. I love a good Reddit revenge story, I murmured, my voice almost a whisper in the quiet of the cafe. For the first time in days, I felt something other than pain or anger. A strange, bitter satisfaction slowly unfurling inside me. You don't have somewhere else to be? Nowhere more interesting than here? He asked, signaling to the barista, his voice carrying that sense of genuine curiosity rather than the morbid fascination I'd expected. You might be right about that, I replied, meeting his eyes. There was something different about him. His eyes weren't filled with judgment, but with a quiet kindness that made me feel for the first time like I wasn't just a pawn in a cruel game. He leaned forward, his voice soft but knowing. What's the next step in your master plan? I let the words hang in the air for a moment, my thoughts drifting back to the wedding still scheduled for 6 weeks away. The non-refundable deposits. The endless arrangements. How Ryan and Sarah probably thought I would quietly back out and disappear, like the good little bride they expected me to be. The next step, I said slowly, is making sure they never forget what they did. And in that moment I realized I knew exactly how I would make them pay. James raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. To karma. To karma, I echoed, clinking my cup against his, a small, defiant smile on my lips. And to unexpected allies. Just then my phone buzzed and Megan's voice crackled through the speaker. Are you insane? I glanced at James across the table, our eyes locking in silent agreement. We had been meeting here daily for the past week, coming up with ideas, mapping out the revenge plan, and yet, everything still felt surreal. Not exactly, I said, my voice low. I'm keeping all the arrangements, but I'm changing the script. James's eyes gleamed with understanding. What does that mean? I lowered my voice to a near whisper, my words deliberate. It means karma needs an audience. James slid a notepad across the table to me. It was filled with ideas we had brainstormed after that first meeting here. Our plot taking shape, every detail falling into place. He had become my unexpected confidant and co-conspirator, someone I never thought I'd lean on, but now I trusted him more than anyone. Just then, I heard Susan's car pull into the cafe parking lot. I told Megan I'd call her back, my heart suddenly heavy with the conversation ahead. You don't have to do this, James said softly, squeezing my hand before standing up to leave. His warmth lingered for a second, a quiet comfort in the storm I had become. I can stay. No, I whispered, shaking my head. This is a conversation I need to have alone. When Susan sat down across from me, the toll of the past week was evident in her weary eyes. Emily, please, she began, her voice shaking. Just talk to your sister. She's devastated. She's barely eating. I leaned back in my chair, the words cutting through the air. Eating good, I said sharply enough to make Susan flinch. Did you know before the shower? Her silence answered my question, and it hurt more than I could put into words. How long did you know something was wrong? I asked, and she swallowed hard. A month ago, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I saw them together at the mall when Ryan was supposed to be at work. And you didn't tell me? My voice was an explosion of disbelief. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I thought I was protecting you, she murmured. Protecting me? I laughed bitterly, the sound escaping my lips like a knife. You were protecting them. You were protecting yourself from having to deal with this mess. That's not fair, my mother murmured, but her voice broke under the weight of the truth. Neither is watching your daughter plan a wedding to a man you know is sleeping with your other daughter. The barista, pretending not to notice the tension, quietly placed 2 coffees in front of us. Your father wants to talk to you, Susan said after a long silence, her words hanging in the air like a storm ready to break. He's furious with all of us. At least someone is, I thought bitterly. I stirred my coffee, the swirl of cream mirroring the swirling chaos inside me. The wedding's still on. Susan's head snapped up, her expression a mix of disbelief and fear. What? You heard me, I replied, the lie flowing effortlessly, smoother than any truth I had ever spoken. Everything proceeds as planned. The venue, the caterers, the flowers, all of it. Her face twisted with confusion. But how? Why? Because I've already paid for most of it, I said, my voice steady and cold. And because I deserve my perfect day. Honey, you can't. I can, I interrupted, standing up. And I will. I looked at her, the weight of my decision clear. Make sure Sarah knows she's still expected to be there as my maid of honor. Her face drained of color, her eyes widening in horror. Emily, please don't do anything. Anything cruel. Anything vindictive. Anything like sleeping with my sister's fiancé. I left her sitting there, her hands trembling around her cooling coffee. Outside, James was waiting in his car. I slid into the passenger seat, my mind already calculating the next step. How'd it go? He asked, his voice calm, though I knew he was bracing for the fallout. Exactly as expected, I replied. She'll tell Sarah. Sarah will tell Ryan, and they'll all spend the next few weeks wondering what I'm planning. Are you sure about this next part? James asked, his eyes searching mine for any sign of doubt. I nodded and pulled out my phone. Time for phase 2. Bring the dress. Update: for an hour later we were at Megan's apartment. My wedding dress hung like a ghost in her spare room, a haunting reminder of the life I had once planned. It's not too late to just cancel everything, Megan said, her voice gentle as she watched me run my hands over the white lace. Actually it is, I said, turning to face them both. They took everything from me, my relationship, my trust, my family. The least they can do is show up to watch me take it all back. And you're sure about James's part in this? Megan asked, eyeing him skeptically. James stepped forward. I know it seems crazy, but it seems insane, Megan corrected him. Maybe, I agreed, a sharp grin tugging at my lips. But sometimes insane is exactly what you need. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Please don't do this. We can talk about it, fix things. I showed it to James and Megan, my smile darkening. See? They're already scared. They should be, James said, pulling out his own phone. I've got the marriage license application ready. We just need to fill it out. Megan's eyes widened. You're really going to? Yes, I cut her off, my voice resolute. In exactly 1 month I'm going to walk down that aisle. But instead of marrying the man who betrayed me, I'm going to marry the man who helped me get my revenge. James grinned. And I couldn't be more honored. This is either the most brilliant or the most terrible plan I've ever heard, Megan said, her voice laced with disbelief. Why not both? I replied, my gaze cold but determined. I picked up my phone and typed a reply to Sarah. Don't worry, sis. Everything's going exactly according to plan. I hit send, imagining her panic as she read those words, savoring the control I now had. Now let's talk about seating arrangements. I want them to have the perfect view of everything. The florist needs final confirmation on the arrangements. Emily, please. Sarah's voice was small, barely a whisper as she stood in my doorway 2 weeks before the wedding, still clinging to her role as the maid of honor. Everything stays exactly as planned, I replied, not looking up from my laptop, the words flowing out without emotion. White roses, red accent flowers. Emily, please. Her voice trembled again, a silent plea laced with guilt. This silent treatment. Would you prefer ice cream? Finally. Met her eyes, my own cold and unyielding. Because I can do that instead. She stepped into my home office, her hands twisting in nervousness. I just don't understand why you're going through with this. The wedding, the plans. It doesn't make sense. A lot of things don't make sense, Sarah, I said, my words sharp as a blade. Like my sister sleeping with my fiancé. The door clicked open and James appeared, coffee cups in hand. Sarah's eyes widened. She hadn't met him yet. Perfect timing, I said, taking a cup from him, the lie slipping from my lips effortlessly. Sarah, meet James. My wedding planner. The words rang hollow in my ears, but I said them as if they were the truth. We decided it was the simplest explanation for his constant presence. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, her gaze never meeting mine. I didn't know you'd hired him. There's a lot you don't know. I turned back to my laptop, letting the words settle like a quiet storm between us. The floors can reach me directly from now on. After Sarah left, James sat beside me, his presence a small comfort in the chaos. Your sister looks terrible, he noted. I didn't respond, my mind still trapped in the swirl of emotions Sarah had just left behind. Good, I finally said, my voice colder than I'd intended. Ryan called again this morning. I pulled up his voicemail on speaker. Emily, this is insane. We need to talk about this wedding. Please call me back. The desperation in his voice was almost too much to bear. They're getting desperate, James observed, his grip tightening on my hand. John called yesterday, he continued. Apparently Ryan's firm found out about the affair. He's being transferred to their Seattle office. And Sarah lost 2 clients at her gallery. Turns out, people don't like art dealers who sleep with their sister's fiancé. A small part of me wanted to feel bad for Sarah, but the rest of me, the part that had been wronged, felt nothing but cold satisfaction. James squeezed my hand gently. Are you okay? I met his eyes, and for the first time in days I felt something other than anger. Better than okay. I showed him my phone screen, a confirmation email from the videographer. Everything's set for the big reveal. Later that evening, during the final dress fitting, Megan watched me twirl in front of the mirror. You look happy, she said, her voice surprised. I am, I said, smoothing the fabric of the dress for the first time since this nightmare had started. I feel in control. And James? She asked, her eyes searching mine. Before I could answer, Susan walked in, her gaze falling on me in the dress. She stopped short, her breath catching. Oh, honey, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I held up a hand, cutting her off before she could say anything more. You lost the right to cry. Mother of the bride, tears, she muttered, but I wasn't listening. The rehearsal dinner venue called, she said instead, trying to shift the conversation. They need the final head count. Everyone's coming, I said firmly, my voice steady. Make sure of it. That night I met James at our cafe. The same barista who had witnessed my breakdown weeks earlier now smiled knowingly at us. Good evening, he said with a subtle nod, as if acknowledging the secret we both shared. The marriage license is official, James said, sliding the document across the table. No going back now. Having second thoughts, he teased, grin tugging at his lips. Helping the most interesting woman I've ever met get the most epic revenge on her cheating fiancé? Never. My phone buzzed. Another text from Ryan. This is cruel even for you. I showed James the message with a quiet laugh. They think I'm being cruel now. The irony was thick in my throat, but I swallowed it down. Wait for it, I said, my fingers typing quickly. Your mom called me today, James said, leaning back, his voice steady. Tried to talk me out of helping you. What did you say? That some stories deserve a better ending than what they had planned, he replied. And she canceled the wedding. I reached across the table, squeezing his hand tightly, a knot of gratitude twisting in my chest. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet, he said, eyes glinting. We still have to pull this off. Back home, I found Sarah sitting on my front steps, her face pale and drawn. Move in with him, she blurted out. After the transfer, go to Seattle with Ryan. Just please don't do whatever you're planning. I laughed, genuine, full-bodied, the sound echoing in the quiet night. You think I want him after everything? The words cut through the air, sharp and final. Then why? Why go through with this? She asked, her voice shaking. I leaned down, meeting her eyes with cold clarity. Because you both need to learn that actions have consequences. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. Now get off my steps. I have a wedding to finish planning. But I called Megan. It's working, I said, my voice steady. They're all terrified. Good, she replied. The video montage is ready. It's brutal. Perfect, I said, a dark satisfaction spreading through me. I pulled up the seating chart on my laptop. Front row seats to their own humiliation, I muttered under my breath. Your dad asked if you're sure about this. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. My fingers hovered over the screen, eyes scanning where Ryan and Sarah's names sat prominently in the front row. In 2 weeks they would wish they had never betrayed me. I touched the marriage license on my desk. He's ready. I smiled, feeling everything fall into place. After hanging up, I sent one final text to both Ryan and Sarah. Can't wait to see you both at the rehearsal dinner. Dress your best. There will be lots of pictures. Their responses came quickly, nearly in sync. Emily, please, we need to talk. I smiled, turning off my phone. Let them worry. Let them panic, I muttered to myself. The countdown to their karma has begun. The church bells rang, the sound echoing through the air. I stood in the bridal suite, watching the guests filter in through the window. Ryan paced outside, his eyes glued to his phone, his face twisted in anxiety. Sarah sat in the front row, wearing the mint green bridesmaid dress I had chosen months ago. She looked like she might be sick. Ready? Megan asked, adjusting my veil. Born ready, I replied, a smile playing on my lips. Sarah stood up, swaying slightly. This isn't you. You can't. Actually, I can. I reached for James, taking his hand, feeling the steady reassurance of his grip. The marriage license is already filed. All we need is the ceremony. You planned this. Ryan's voice rose, full of disbelief. All of it? The wedding? The guests? Consider it my gift to you both, I said sweetly, the words dripping with a venomous come. A front row seat to karma. The minister, who had been briefed in advance, cleared his throat. Shall we begin? This is insane, Sarah stepped forward, her voice cracking. Mom, Dad, do something. I think they've done enough, Dad said, moving to stand beside me. Proceed. The ceremony was short and perfect. James's vows made me cry real tears. We might have started this as a revenge plot, but somewhere along the way it had become something more. You may kiss the bride, the minister announced as James kissed me. I heard Ryan storm out, followed by the click of Sarah's heels running after him. The crowd erupted in a mixture of applause, shocked whispers, and even some laughter. At the reception, Susan approached our table looking shell-shocked. I don't know whether to be proud or horrified. How about both? I suggested, raising my champagne glass. Your sister is learning that actions have consequences. I stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to dance with my husband. James led me to the dance floor as our first song played, Sweet Revenge by John Prine, naturally. Was it everything you hoped for? He asked, spinning me around. Better. I glanced at the door where Ryan and Sarah had fled. Though I almost feel bad for them. Almost. Don't. They earned this. Megan appeared with her phone. You're trending locally on Twitter. Someone filmed the whole thing. I laughed, feeling the heat of satisfaction in my chest. Good. Let everyone know what happens when you betray the wrong person. And what happens next? James asked softly. I looked up at him, this wonderful man who'd turned my revenge plot into a love story. Next we go on our honeymoon. A real one. Bali? He suggested, grinning. Bali, I agreed, far away from all this drama. As we danced, guests came up to alternately congratulate us and express their shock, but all I could focus on was James's arms around me and the feeling of finally being free from the weight of betrayal. Ready to get out of here? He whispered as the song ended. I nodded, catching sight of my new ring sparkling under the reception lights. Ready for everything. The morning after the wedding, I woke up to hundreds of notifications. The video had gone viral, spreading across social media like wildfire. Wedding revenge was trending. Your revenge is now internet famous. James said, showing me his phone over breakfast in our hotel suite. The comments are wild. Any regrets? I asked, scrolling through messages from strangers calling me everything from a hero to a monster. He kissed my forehead. Only that we have to deal with the aftermath before Hawaii trip. The aftermath arrived sooner than expected. A knock at our door revealed Megan looking frazzled. Your sister's downstairs in the lobby, she announced. She's causing a scene. Of course she is, I muttered, slipping on my shoes. Time to face the music. Sarah stood in the middle of the lobby, mascara streaked down her face. How could you? Funny, I said, my voice calm. I asked myself the same thing about you and Ryan. You humiliated us. She stepped closer, desperation in her eyes. Everyone's seen the video. His company, my clients, actions meet consequences. I kept my voice steady. How's Ryan handling his newfound fame? He's devastated. The Seattle transfer fell through because of this. Tragic, I said, my tone laced with bitterness. This isn't funny, Emily, she snapped. You've ruined our lives. No, James stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. You ruined your own lives when you decided to betray your sister. He turned to me. And you, he said to Sarah, what kind of person agrees to marry someone they barely know for revenge? The kind who recognizes a remarkable woman when he meets one. James replied evenly. Hotel guests were staring now, phones discreetly recording. Sarah noticed and lowered her voice. Mom's a mess. Dad won't speak to me. Is that what you wanted? What I wanted, I said, my arms crossed, was a faithful fiancé and a loyal sister. We don't always get what we want. She whispered, barely audible, please tell me how to fix this. You can't fix it, Sarah, I replied, my voice firm. You can only live with it, just like I had to live with what you did. The hotel manager approached, eyeing Sarah warily. Is everything all right here? My sister was just leaving, I said firmly as security escorted her out. My phone buzzed. Ryan calling. I answered on speaker. Satisfied. His voice was rough. You've destroyed everything. Funny how karma works, isn't it? I said. I loved you, he muttered. No, I corrected him. You loved yourself more than you respected me. There's a difference. James took my hand as I hung up. Megan wiped away the tears I hadn't realized were falling. Let's get out of here, James suggested. Our flight to Bali leaves in 4 hours. Back in our room, packing the last of our things, another knock came. This time it was John. Just wanted to say goodbye before you left, he said, pulling me into a tight hug. I'm proud of you, kiddo. For humiliating my sister and ex-fiancé? For refusing to be their victim. He shook James's hand. Take care of her. Always. In the taxi to the airport, Megan sent updates from social media. The video had reached millions of views. Wedding revenge had spawned dozens of memes. You're going to be dealing with this for a while, she warned. Good, I replied, feeling the weight of everything fall off my shoulders. Let it be a warning to others who think about betraying someone's trust. At the airport, James surprised me with first-class tickets. A proper start to our unconventional marriage. About that, I turned to face him. What happens when we get back? When the revenge high wears off? He took my hands in his, the confidence in his eyes unwavering. Then we date properly like a normal couple. We get to know each other without the pressure of revenge plotting. And maybe, just maybe, we'll find out this crazy plan gave us both exactly what we needed. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll handle it like adults. No betrayal. No revenge required. As we boarded the plane, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Susan. I hope you find peace in Bali, and I hope someday you can forgive us all. I showed it to James. Think I should respond? That's up to you, but maybe wait until after our honeymoon. You've earned a break from family drama. As the plane took off, I looked out at the city growing smaller below us. Somewhere down there, Ryan and Sarah were dealing with the consequences of their choices. My viral revenge would follow them for years. A digital reminder of their betrayal. But up here, holding James's hand, I felt something unexpected. Peace. The kind that comes not from forgiveness but from taking back your power. Ready for our next adventure? James asked. I smiled, thinking about how this man had turned my revenge plot into the beginning of something real. More than ready. The Hawaiian sun set over the ocean as James and I walked along the beach on our last evening there. 2 weeks of paradise had given us space to process everything and really get to know each other. Megan sent another update as I checked my phone. Ryan moved back in with his parents. Sarah quit the gallery. Still following the aftermath less each day. I pocketed my phone. It matters less now because revenge is complete. Because I'm happy. I stopped walking, turning to face him. Actually happy. Not just satisfied with revenge. My phone rang. Dad calling. I answered on speaker. Your sister's here, he said without preamble. She wants to know if you'll meet with her when you get back. What do you think I should do? I think, Dad said carefully, that you've made your point powerfully. Now you get to decide what kind of relationship you want with your family going forward. After hanging up, James and I sat in the sand watching the waves. You know, he said, his voice soft, when you first told me your revenge plan in that cafe, I thought you were crazy. And now? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Now? I think you're brilliant. Terrifying but brilliant. He grinned. Remind me never to cross you. You won't. I leaned against him. That's the difference. I trust you. Even though we got married as part of a revenge plot, especially because of that. You could have backed out at any time, could have exposed my plan. Instead, you helped me reclaim my power. My phone buzzed again, a text from Sarah. I understand if you never want to speak to me again, but I'm in therapy now working on myself. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Are you going to respond? James asked, reading over my shoulder. Not yet. I turned off my phone. First I want to enjoy my last sunset in Hawaii with my husband. And then we go home and figure out what normal looks like for us. The next morning as we packed, James found the USB drive containing the wedding video. What should we do with this? He asked, his voice low, a hint of curiosity mixed with caution. I took it, turning it over in my hands, feeling the weight of what it held. More than just a video, but a reminder of everything that had come before. Upload it one more time, I said, the words escaping me like a release. Then we move on. He paused, eyes narrowing slightly. You sure? The best revenge isn't just about making them pay. I met his gaze, my resolve firm. It's about making sure you grow stronger from it. At the airport, waiting for our flight home, I finally replied to Sarah. I'm not ready to talk, but maybe someday. Progress, James noted, baby steps. Just as I said that, my phone lit up with a notification. The final upload of the wedding video had hit 1 million views. Below it, a comment from Ryan. I deserve this. I'm sorry. I looked at James, smile pulling at my lips. First time he's actually admitted fault. Sometimes people need a dramatic wake-up call. Speaking of wake-up calls, I turned to face him fully, my voice teasing yet serious. Are you ready for real life? Being married to someone you met through a revenge plot isn't exactly normal. He laughed, the sound rich with amusement. Normal is overrated. Besides, I got to marry the most interesting woman I've ever met. How many people can say their love story started with exposing cheaters at their own wedding? So you don't regret it, do you? I asked, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. I thought about everything. The sharp pain of betrayal, the dark satisfaction of revenge, and the unexpected joy of finding love amidst the chaos. No, I said, my voice steady. I don't regret any of it. Then neither do I, he replied, kissing me just as our flight was called. We boarded the plane, the cabin a new chapter waiting to be written. As I settled into my seat, I received one last text from Susan. Whatever you decide about Sarah, know that we love you and we're sorry we didn't protect you better. I showed it to James, my hand trembling slightly as I held my phone. Think we can build something good from all this mess? I asked, the question heavy with uncertainty. He took my hand, his grip warm and sure. I think, he said, that we already have. The plane took off, leaving behind the island where we'd hidden from the aftermath of our dramatic revenge. But we weren't running anymore. We were moving forward, toward whatever came next. You know what the best part of revenge is? I asked, leaning in closer to James, my voice barely above a whisper. What's that? He replied, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. Sometimes it leads you exactly where you're supposed to be. He smiled, squeezing my hand. Even if that place is totally unexpected. Especially then, I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling truly at peace for the first time since discovering Ryan's betrayal. Sometimes the best endings aren't the ones we planned. And sometimes, James added, they're even better. After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind, or maybe it has brought back some old memories. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories, and they connect all of us. Everyone has their own unique journey in life, and we all try to understand the world in our own way. These kinds of moments remind us that we are all human, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and always learning something new. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with your friends. Your thoughts and feedback are always valuable to us, as they motivate us to create even better content. Every story has its own unique angle, and our goal is to understand everyone's perspective and make our content diverse and relatable. Stories like these help us realize that life's journey is different for everyone, and by hearing other stories we learn something new. You can also share your own stories with us. Your experiences are valuable to us as well. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave your feedback. We aim to create content that brightens your mind and gives you new ideas every time. If you've already seen this video before, your feedback is still important. With every piece of feedback, we can improve our content and bring a new perspective to our viewers. Today, what we saw was just a small part of the many stories shared on Reddit and across the world. It's a reminder of how we all try to understand life by sharing our experiences with each other. This video was only an example of how we try to connect with others through storytelling, learning about different sides of life. We hope to continue sharing such stories that help us all learn and grow together. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep creating the content you love. Join our community and stay tuned for more amazing stories coming your way. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks for being part of our journey. If you haven't already, please like and follow for more amazing content. Your support keeps us going, and we will strive to bring you more thought-provoking and heartwarming stories. Until next time, take care and stay curious.